Greetings, math fans. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to do day 5 of chapter 6, which is called the elimination method. All right, this is another way of solving systems of equations. We have already talked about graphing, and when you graph, you look to see where the two lines intersect, and that's your solution. Okay, so that's one way of solving systems. The second way of solving is using substitution, which we just covered. And that's where you solve for one of the variables and you substitute that into the other equation and then you solve. So that's called substitution. Now this method we're going to be using is called the elimination method. Okay, elimination means you are eliminating one of the variables, and once you eliminate one of the variables you have one left, you solve for it and then you plug it back in, then you use substitution. So it's got some similarities to substitution, but you don't solve for one of the variables. You actually have to line things up. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the first, this first thing right here. Okay, it's a solving system of equations with elimination method. They sometimes call it linear combination. Not a big deal. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of these rules here. The first thing is you need to make sure that both equations are in standard form. What I mean by that, this guy right here, is you need to here's the x value and here's the y value, and it needs to be equal to the c value or the constant. So in other words, it needs to be in the form like 5x plus 2y equals 10. Okay, it can't be like 5x equals 2y plus 10 or 5y or solve for y. It's got to be x and y on the left hand side and numbers on the right hand side. Has to be that way. Okay, so you're going to have to add and subtract. It's usually what's going to happen is maybe you'll have to add and subtract to move things over, but that is the deal. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to add the two equations together. One of the variables should drop out, should cancel out. Okay, I'll show you that in a little bit, but basically you're just combining the equations where one of the variables cancel. All right. The third is solve the equation for the variables left, because when you eliminate one of the variables, one stays, and then you're going to solve for that one other variable. Okay. And then the fourth thing is you're going to substitute the answer back into one of the original equations, doesn't matter which one, to solve for the other variable. Okay, so substitute back in. So that's why we're going to kind of use a little bit of what we learned before about substitution. You plug it back into one of the equations. And then these other two, this guy right here where it says write your answers in order pair, that's great if it's x, y, but if it's like, you know, a and b or m and n, that's not really an order pair. So, but you know, if it's an x and y, you should write it as an 5 comma 3, and x is 5, y is 3, right, as an order pair. Okay, and then the last one, math fans, is checking your work, and that's basically plugging in the values of x and y into the equation to see if that worked out and see if there are any problems. Okay, so it's really easy to check your work. So let's get started with a problem here. And it's not too difficult, so we'll kind of follow the rules that we just learned. And basically, the first thing I'm checking here is it in terms of are the x's together and the y's together. And this is actually really important too. They have to line up. So the x's have to line up, and then the y's have to line up, and then the numbers have to line up. Okay, if it's anything different than that, which we'll get to a problem like that in a little bit, then you have to line them up. You need to add and subtract, move things over in order for it to line up. But you can't do the problem unless it's all lined up. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add going down. Now it might mean subtracting. It all depends what the sign is. All right, so I'm going to draw a line underneath here. I'm going to say x plus x is 2x. This is basically how to do the problem. And y minus y, that cancels out. Notice it's positive y minus y. Y minus y is 0y. That's the whole point of the elimination method, is that the y's cancel out, or a variable cancels out. So you wind up getting 2x equals, and 7 plus 9 is 16. Okay, so the only thing I do is I solve for x, so I divide by 2, and I get x equals 8. Okay, there we go. That's our first part of the equation, or first part of the solution here. And then I take the 8 and I plug it back into one of the top two equations here. Okay, and I always say plug it into the easier one. You know, I usually choose the one that has the least number of negatives or smaller numbers, so I would probably plug it back into this x right here. So it's x plus y equals 7, so it's x, which is 8, plus y equals 7. And then you solve for y. So subtract 8, and so y equals -1. And there you go, math fans. You're done with that problem. Okay, y is -1, x is 8. So if you wanted to write that as an ordered pair, it'd be 8 comma -1. But that's it. That's all you do. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. Now again, these are set up nicely for you. When we get to the next day, it gets a little more difficult, and then we set the following day, it even gets a little more difficult, but not brutally difficult like you want to cry or anything. Okay, well maybe cry a little bit, but make sure you have plenty of Kleenex. Okay, so what we're going to do is, again, it's already set up. The m's are in order, the n's are in order, and then the numbers are in order. They're equal to that value. Okay, so we draw a line underneath there. 3m minus 3m is 0, so that basically cancels. Okay, 2n plus 5n is 7n, and 8 plus 13 is 21. Okay, we're 50% way done with the problem already. We divide by 7, n equals 3. Okay, and then remember, we take that and we plug it into one of the two equations. I personally would plug it into the top equation because I don't have to deal with that negative sign there. So it's 3m plus 2n, which is 2 times 3, equals 8. And then you solve for m. So it's going to be 3m plus 6 equals 8. Subtract 6. 3m equals 2. And then divide by 3. M equals 2/3. So I'm going to tell you, this is probably the nastiest one that you're going to get. Most of the problems that you're going to get do not have any fractions. Okay, so don't panic when you see a fraction for this one because most of them don't have it. But that's my answer right here. M is 2/3, N is 3. Okay, pretty easy. Let's keep going here. Again, these are lined up. So I'm going to draw a line. R is under the R, S is under the S, and the numbers are under the numbers. So R plus R is 2R. Negative S plus S cancels. And negative 5 plus 25 is 20. Okay, we solve for R, divide by 2. R equals 10. And then what we're going to do is we're going to substitute it back into one of the equations. Again, I'm probably going to plug it back into the second equation, less negatives. So I'm going to plug that back into that R right there. So I get 10 plus S equals 25. And subtract 10. I get S equals 15. Okay, so there you go. 10 and 15. Pretty easy. Okay, number 4. What's the issue that I have here? Okay, remember I said the x's need to line up and the y's need to line up, and they're not. The y is on the left side of the x. So the first equation I'm just going to write as x plus y equals 3 because that's good. And the second equation, here, I'm going to write on the side here, negative y plus 2x equals 6. Negative 6. So guys, what I don't want to do, I don't need to add and subtract because basically it's already on the correct side. The variables are on the left side. You don't even have to worry about that. But they're in the wrong order. So switch it around. So instead of saying negative y plus 2x, you're going to say 2x minus y equals negative 6. Okay, so again, I just literally swapped these two and got my 2x minus y equals negative 6. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a line underneath. They cancel, and I get 3x is equal to negative 3, and divide by negative 3, or sorry, positive 3. Right, so we get rid of that. I can divide by 3, and I get x equals negative 1. Okay, so now I plug it back into either one of the two equations. I'm going to personally plug it back into the first one because it's easier. So I'm going to get negative 1 plus y equals 3. And I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So y equals 4. So you go, negative 1 and 4. Okay, let's keep going. I'm just going to do all the examples. You know, if you're watching this video and you're like, I get it, move on to the homework. Otherwise, you can watch me do a few more examples. It's not a bad thing. Okay, so everything's lined up here. If you notice, math fans, the 2x cancels and the 5y, right? 2x minus 2x is 0, 5y minus 5y is 0, so we get 0 is equal to 19. If you guys remember from when we did this in the past, 0 doesn't equal 19. Okay, that's false. So what do you say for this type of problem? You say no solution. Okay, pretty easy. Alright, the next one, again, I kind of prefer having the x's and the y's on the left-hand side and the numbers on the right. So I'm just literally, I don't need to add and subtract. I'm literally going to rewrite the top equation as 2x minus 3y equals 5, and then negative 4x plus 3y equals negative 1. Alright, notice, math fans, the y's cancel. So you get 2x minus 4x is negative 2x, 5 minus 1 is 4. And then you divide by negative 2, x equals negative 2. And then I'm going to plug it back into either one of the equations. Okay, top one to the bottom one. So I'm going to plug it into probably let's get right here. Plug it into the top one. Okay, so I get 2 times negative 2 minus 3y equals 5. So negative 4 minus 3y equals 5. Add 4 to both sides. So negative 3y equals 9. Divide by negative 3. Y equals negative 3. So there you go. X is negative 2. Y is negative 3. Okay? Again, this is not in the correct order. So the first one's good. I'm just going to write it again. 3x minus 8y equals 12. And I'm going to move that negative 3x over. Plus 8y equals negative 12. So if you notice, the x's and the y's cancel. And 12 minus 12 is 0. So I wind up getting 0 equals 0. That's true. 0 does equal 0. So it's true. And so you want to say infinite solutions. Okay, that's what I say when the left side and the right side, when they both cancel out and you get 0 equals 0, it's infinite solutions, as opposed to this one where the sides cancel out, but the 9 and the 10 obviously didn't cancel out, so that is false, and that's why you'd say no solution. Okay, so infinite solutions, it works out. No solutions, it doesn't work out. Okay, it's all lined up. X's and y's are lined up, so negative 3x plus 7y is 4x. That cancels and equals 4. Negative 21 plus 25. Again, I don't mind you using your calculators, but make sure you get it right. And then we divide by 4. X equals 1. Okay, and then again, it's your choice on what you want to plug into. Okay, I would probably plug it into the bottom one just because lots of negatives on the top one. So it's 7x, so 7 times 1 plus 9y equals 25. So 7 plus 9y equals 25. And then you basically just solve for y. So 9y equals 18. And then divide by 9. So y equals 2. So you get y equals 2, x equals 1. Okay, so far so good. Again, the x's and y's are lined up, so we're going to do 2x plus 3x is 5x, and the y's cancel, equals 0. Now, people get confused by this. A lot of times what people like to do with this one, they just like to say, oh, this one's no solution because 5x doesn't equal 0. Guys, it's only when the variable cancels out. I can still solve for this. If I divide by 5, which I'm solving for x, I get x equals 0. Which makes sense because think about the original problem, this guy right here. 5 times what is 0? Oh, it's 0. So x has to be equal to 0. Okay? And then we're going to plug that 0 for x into one of the equations. And so which one do I want to plug it into? I would probably go with the top one. Less negatives. Okay, so 2 times 0 plus 5y equals 10. So that cancels out and we get 5y equals 10. So y equals 2 divided by 5. Okay, so y is 2, and then we're done. So x is 0, y is 2. Alright. Okay, so the next one, again, I'm going to get everything in order. Notice my x's and y's are messed up here and they're on the wrong side. So I'm going to write it as 8x plus 2y equals negative 6, and negative 7x minus 2y equals 3. Okay, now it's all lined up, and 8x minus 7x is 1x. The y's cancel, so 1x equals negative 3. Divide by, actually that's it. So x equals negative 3. Okay? And then in order to find out the y value, I'm going to plug it into one with the least number of negatives. So I'm going to go with this guy's the first equation right here. So it's 8 times negative 3 plus 2y equals negative 6. So negative 24 plus 2y equals negative 6. Add 24 to both sides. So 2y is equal to 18. And then divide by 2. So y equals 9. So there you go. X is negative 3 and y is 9. Alright, so that's the whole example worksheet, math fans. Hope you guys are good to go with this. Like I said, tomorrow on the next note sheet, we're going to get something a little more advanced where things don't cancel out quite so easily. But it's the same idea once it does start canceling out. Alright, that's it, math fans. Have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.